apparently that's nothing to do with the planet, but I was having a poetic moment. You know, like dawn and dusk are the same thing, strangely, and they're happening at the same time. But apparently it's nothing to do with the planet. Nothing to do with it being round and stuff. Yeah. Which side of it the sun hits and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, really well. Welcome back, everybody. A little science lesson there for us. Yeah, good to see you. So everyone's zooming in again. The same sofas with the same people. That's good. That's good. So welcome back. Welcome back. So a few more people. Oh, there's Sangajit walking around in the ground. Slightly frightening look. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. You've had a bit of a rest, a bit of a nap before this afternoon. Otherwise, you know what it's like. You'll have a nap during this afternoon. That's my experience. I've got this T-shirt with me that says "Taking naps seriously." I was leading this retreat and saying how important it was to have naps, and I said I should have this T-shirt with "Taking naps seriously" on it. So somebody went and printed one for me. One of those things you can never wear in public. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. So I'll say a few more things. Not very much, I don't think. Although sometimes that's a bad sign when someone says I haven't got much to say. For a start, if they've forgotten to salute the shrine, and often they then go on talking too long. So let's salute the shrine first. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Namo.
Namo Namo.
Om.
Om.
Okay, so I wanted to say a little bit more about, sort of more generally, partly coming on from that question this morning about working with, not working with, noticing that sense of relief and release. I want to say a little bit more about that. And then I suggest that we do an open period of practice, and I'd suggest that you choose an approach, and I'll say perhaps a little bit more about that in a moment. Just to say about the program, so tomorrow morning at 10:30 British Summer Time, Jnanavakcha will lead us through the Vajrasattva sadhana. So that won't be public, so we won't put that obviously on the YouTube channel. So you can watch it you will be able to watch, sounds awful, you will be able to watch it on catch up. Sounds like an episode of, anyway. You will be able to watch it if you're on the retreat later on, that's the way of putting it, but you won't be able to, if you're not on the retreat, you won't be able to watch it. I think that's right, isn't it? But yeah, so just to let you know, that's what we'll be doing tomorrow morning, is our culmination of the exploration leading all the way back to the sadhana again, and the Vajrasattva sadhana. So we'll be doing the Vajrasattva sadhana together, led by your Lord. I'll mention that again tonight, because some people will be tuning in tonight. Okay, so just to remind us of all the things we all know. So the purpose of these reflections on the laksanas is to recognize that the self sense is illusory. Yeah? I mean, you all know this. The purpose of this reflection on the laksanas, just as the purpose of the six element practice, is to recognize that the self sense is illusory. We're not trying to sacrifice the self. We're not trying to get rid of the self. We're not trying to dissolve the self into the blue sky. We're just trying to see that actually we haven't got one. That the self sense is an illusion. Or to nuance it, I think, a little tiny bit more, because I think we run into trouble when we talk about self or non-self, personally. I think without realizing it, we're talking metaphysics, and we should be careful of that. So when we say self or non-self, we're starting to look like we're describing reality, and we can't say anything about reality, including that it has no self. I think if you're not careful, you think that non-self is a description of reality as well. You can't describe reality. So you could nuance it if you wanted a bit further to say the self sense, as we assume, habituate, think it is, have been brought up to believe, act like it is, that is illusory. There might be something in the self sense. This is from my own experience on my ordination retreat. There was sort of something in it, but it's not something I could say. That was my experience. There might be much deeper places you can go, but you can't say that I don't think the reality is self or non-self. What you can say, I think, is that the self sense that we try to shore up, that we try to protect, that we try to push things away from, that we gather objects around to embellish, that we fear to lose, that feels hurt when our partner goes off with somebody else. That's an illusion. It doesn't exist. You can't find it. What exists? Well, I don't know. The Buddha wasn't so. He wanted us to experience that for ourselves because he couldn't find words to describe it. So I think we have to be careful when we use self and non-self. They're actually, I think, sneakily metaphysical terms, and they can both of them can get you into trouble, various kinds of trouble. So you keep on having to caveat yourself out of existence if you're not careful. So you have to say something, which would be that the self sense is illusory. But you can see that you really, to try to be strict, you'd have to caveat that. Then you'd have to caveat your caveat, and you could go on in an infinite regress. Yeah. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see that the self sense is illusory. We're not trying to sacrifice something that exists. We're not trying to dissolve something that exists. We're not trying to see that, and that's what we're trying to do. And what we're looking for, and we know this from our absolute basic Buddhism, is we're looking for a sense of freedom. That's what the Buddha says. My teaching is the taste of freedom. Bhante goes back to that sutta again and again, the taste of freedom, doesn't he? I remember him doing a question and answers at the London Buddhist Centre with order members, which actually wasn't a wonderful success, but that's a whole other thing. It actually was pretty terrible. But anyway, but what I was struck by, he kept coming back to that taste of freedom. And he told us the whole parable again. And anyway, there we go. But clearly that's what the Dharma is pointing to, a sense of freedom. Yeah. So that's any sense of freedom, just of all of those great metaphors, taking off a heavy load, getting out of prison, all those things that you go all the way back in the Buddhist tradition, that would be accompanied by a sense of release. It's the same metaphor, a sense of relief, a sense of that you've been working strangely really hard, and it was such a relief not to have to work like that. Accompanying that would be a sense of joy, because relief leads to joy. Pain that you've been in without even noticing it has been relieved, and there's joy. I often think of self being like the fan in our kitchen in the community. When you put a fan above the cooker on and you're eating your meal, and suddenly someone realizes that the fan's still on, and you turn off the fan, and you feel that lovely, oh God. You hadn't actually realized that it's been going on in the background because you've been chatting. You've become habituated to the sound. But it's only when it goes off that you realize that you were sort of under pressure. You had that experience of body, oh, such a relief when that fan is turned off. So, that's my modern metaphor for the same thing. When that machinery is turned off, there's joy, there's peace, there's relief, there's a sense of spaciousness. And all that happens actually on a very low level when the fan gets turned off. Oh gosh, you actually feel your body like expand. Or, like today when you walk out into the sunlight, it's not a cognitive experience. Your body seems to sort of open itself to the sun. Or when you get very hot and you walk into the cool, like the cool cave, and your body goes, oh, there's this sort of physical sense of, oh, I was actually under pressure by the heat. And it's lovely. You can feel your organism, oh, I'm now in better conditions. Yeah. So, we know that what that's like on, very ordinary, mundane levels. And that sense of relief, freedom, spaciousness, opening out, happens all the way up, one would presume, until enlightenment itself. That process of opening out never ends. It's the lotus blooming, isn't it? That we can open out, expand, become beautiful. So we're looking for some. We're not looking too hard, remember, because as soon as you look for something too hard, you can't see it. It's like looking at certain stars at night. You have to see them at the corner of your eye. So you're not looking too hard, but you are looking, metaphorically, for that experience. Yeah. You're not searching around for it, rummaging around for it. You're not saying to yourself, when will it happen? All of these things are things I've done myself. You're just doing the practice, bringing to, putting on the view, and it might be the view of anicca or anatta or dukkha. It might be the reaction practice that you've been working with, that we were doing the other day. This sense of emergence, as what you started to explore this morning. Whichever way, the sixth element practice, whatever way you're going into the reflection on spiritual death, you've got half an eye out for this sense of release, opening, and it's physical. It's a strongly physical experience, although it might not be strong. So this morning, gosh, it seems a long way away. I was just having a little tiny. For me, for me, they're little tiny things, but actually, it's really valuable to notice those little tiny things. Yeah, those little tiny openings. Start to attune yourself without trying to grab, etc., without trying to wait for them to happen, because of course that stops them happening. You just do the practice, but you're attuning yourself to that. And it really feels for me like, like an old knotted bit of rope, when they just come undone a bit, and then usually as soon as you notice it, well, in my case, they tighten up again. But you notice, value, experience that sense, yeah, of that's arisen. You're trying to train yourself in prajna practice to notice, to value that, yeah. Especially if like me, you'll tend to have already trained yourself to notice that you got distracted, and notice that you weren't doing very well, and notice that you don't get experiences like Jana Varcha does or whatever. Yeah? So really notice those little moments of opening. And then pay attention, again, when you have them, they're accompanied by a sense, and it can be, remember, a very subtle sense. It might not be a very leading sense, but a very subtle sense of well-being. Yeah? Well-being that's in your body, that's not an idea of well-being, it's like, my experience of it, it sort of comes up from the basement into the house of myself, not put on top. If you said to me, it sort of arises. So notice that sense of well-being that accompanies this sense of opening up. Yeah. So as I was saying yesterday, as that starts to happen in the reflection, and of course these reflections, like the 6-element practice and like the sadhana practice itself, will be really aided by as much samadhi as possible, without falling into that trap of endlessly prolonging samadhi, but it'll be aided by that as much samadhi as possible. So when you notice those openings, first of all, see if you can notice them and value them, not too heavily, but try and notice them, just like you might, I go out to the burial mound and you notice the flowers, notice, I'm glad to be here, you don't think there's a flower, you know what I mean? You just sort of think, don't you? So it's just like that. It's no big deal. Notice the subtle sense of well-being that accompanies it. Yeah, and as I said before, what you can do is tilt your practice from there towards prajna or towards samadhi. They're not actually that different. It's just like you just tilt, but look slightly to your left, and you'll go off into, you might go off into samadhi, but you'll start to move towards the realm of samadhi, or you look slightly to the right and you start to move towards the realm of prajna, and you need the both. Yeah. So if you start to feel sort of well-being, you can either just say, okay, I'm just going to enjoy that. I'm just going to settle into that. Again, perhaps starting to move more like Yanavarcha was saying, you just think, I'm just going to you just sort of rest back into it a bit more, like it's a support, and you can just sort of go, oh, that's nice. You can just sort of rest back into that more and let it sort of open out. Of course, again, you have to be careful not to grab and make things happen. So if you're grabbing, then you need to go back and think, okay, let's carry on with the practice. What's the view again? So in this practice we're going to do, I make sure you know what practice that you're doing. So you can either do that, or you can just tilt that well-being towards prajna. So you bring the reflection to the sense of well-being and peace if it's arising. And remember, it can be arising very subtly. It does for me, for all kinds of reasons, including psychological ones, and what I'll allow to arise, I'm afraid, habitually. So if it arises very subtly, you'll notice that it's there, but other things are there as well. There's still tension, there's still distraction. And what you can do then is just keep reminding yourself a little bit that it's there. And gradually it'll start to, you have to be careful with it, but it'll start to be a bit more, universally present in your experiences. But so it doesn't need to be a big experience, is what I'm trying to say. And for me, if I try and look for big experiences, it stops any kind of experience. It just makes me tired. So if you can then try and think, okay, well, am I grasping to that? Just like we said before, or that's empty. You could bring the view to that sense of well-being. You can just bring the view to that. Okay, well, that's not me. It's not mine, or it's not something I can sort of find and place. So I can just see where I'm holding on to that, and you let go of that, and then something will change again. But you've always got these possibilities of, and it's just a question of the slight lean of the mind towards samadhi, or a slight lean of the mind towards prajna. Yeah, it's no big deal, as it were. So you can sustain the prajna by looking at the well-being itself and regarding it as either impermanent, as dukkha, because it's going to end, or that actually there's still a level of holding on to it. They'll still be grasping to it. So they look for the grasping in that experience, especially if you tend to grasp pleasant experience. Look for the grasping and let go of that. Or you think it's anatta, or you remember this anatta, it's not me, it's arising. And you can experience I mean, this is not so much from my experience, but you can experience a lot of pleasure, and so my friends tell me, and still be saying, and it's not mine, it's not me. And in fact, you can see that will allow the pleasure to arise even stronger. You say, yeah, but it's not, I don't own it, it's not my possession, I need to let go of it, etc. Yeah. So there can be still quite a lot of those things that we associate with samadhi: pleasure, joy, tranquility, ease, and all that sort of thing. But yeah, so we'll just to recapitulate. So we're looking for freedom, aren't we? That's an absolute core teaching of the whole Buddhist tradition. We're looking for freedom, and freedom's not this big thing that necessarily that it's become politicized, doesn't it? The idea of freedom. You can have tiny moments of semi-freedom, as it were. Freedom can feel like a large abstraction. And you can just sort of start to value those moments. Start to think, well, they have some. Otherwise you'll tend to, if you're like me of a certain kind of disposition, you'll tend to sort of say, yeah, but I had all these moments when I wasn't. And that's what I do very easily is, yeah, but they were just flukes. The real things were all the things where I wasn't, yeah? So just let's try and, if you've got that psyche like mine, put that aside. Just say, I'm just going to, if there's little tiny moments of semi-freedom, it can be, like red top milk in England, which is like so unskim that there's hardly any milk in it, so it could be tiny little moments. You can still value those. Okay. So let's just have a moment or two to stretch our legs if you want to, and then we'll do meditation. So choosing what you're going to do in this meditation, and I think that is a place where you do really need your will. You need to decide what you're going to do. Take up one of the reflections, practice your sadhana, do just sitting. What we talk quite a lot of things, and the difficulty when people do this, and I've had this myself, is you end up feeling like you've got this kind of chocolate box and you can't decide which one to eat. So you now nibble of all of them. So see if you can decide what you're going to do just now, and then work with that. Doesn't really matter which one particularly. So setting yourself up. I'll read a poem at the end, start and at the end. First of all, when you're ready, closing your eyes. Just noticing the relief of not looking into the screen anymore. These Zoom calls are quite tiring on the eye, so it's quite nice just to close your eyes. So softening your eyes, softening your brow, See if you can just release your jaw a little bit, your mouth. Often our jaw is habitually tight. And then see if you can let go of your shoulders. Really feeling your shoulders, feeling any tightness in your shoulders. Just imagine that tightening, softening away, soothing out, smoothing out. Shoulders dropping down your back. See if you can soften your belly. Again, it's very habitual to grip in the belly. And let go of your thighs. So your whole body is calming down, quietening down. Calming your body, calming your mind. The road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. then took the other, was just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Sitting for the last few minutes of the meditation. Letting go of your effort. The road not taken. Two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps a better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Okay, good. So we'll have a break now, and then we'll come back once again at 7:30, which is summertime, and we'll start exploring the myth of self-discovery tonight.